printing was pretty widespread, and they made their living by selling tickets, and they protected their plays by only giving each actor their own script lines to take away with them. Shakespeare's plays weren't actually printed until many years after his death. Now, magazine publisher Daniel Defoe was a great campaigner for copyright. He was one of the most vocal supporters of the Statute of Anne that we were hearing about earlier. And for those of you at the back who might not be able to read it, let me just read out his very famous quote. That is, to print another man's copy is much worse than robbing him on the highway, for the thief takes only what he finds about him, but the pirate printer takes away his inheritance, not of the author only, but of his family and children. Now, a few years after the Statute of Anne, Defoe wrote what many people consider to be the first ever novel in the English language, which is Robinson Crusoe. And there's a pretty clear implication that he wouldn't have bothered to write this work of fiction if he hadn't been protected by copyright laws. Dr. Samuel Johnson was a professional writer, not an amateur, and he famously said that no man but a blockhead would ever write except for money. And a group of publishers, of course, paid him 1,500 guineas, a huge fee at the time, to write his dictionary. And they did it because they were very confident they'd get their money back through copyright enforcement. Charles Dickens, it was copyright that let Charles Dickens publish most of his stories as episodes in magazines, before then turning them into book form. But at the time, there was no reciprocal treaty with America. So printers over there simply collected the episodes, turned them into books, and sold them without permission and without him getting any payment at all. And his only solution was to do rather grueling speaking tours around North America. And in 1867, he did 22 nights at one venue alone in New York, and it nearly killed him. This is Dolly the Sheep, and she makes the point that digital technology is really different, because we don't make copies, we make exact replicas, clones. In the 1980s, home taping of music wasn't really such a huge problem, because copies took time, they cost money, and you lost quality. But with a copy of a digital file, in effect, you actually have the original, and that undermines the whole possibility of physical protection of copyright. Faced with clones, Jeff Zucker, the president of NBC, famously coined that phrase that media companies were swapping analog dollars for digital cents. He's recently actually become much more optimistic, and he now says that they're swapping them for digital dimes. That, I think, is the point. You can never charge for digital what we used to charge for analog, because we're only selling content. We're not actually selling paper and packaging, books, and so on. And finally, Bill Gates. In a very famous essay, he predicted we were a year away from having a viable system of micro payments for digital content. Unfortunately, he wrote that in 1996, which is more than 15 years ago. And if he couldn't make it work, you've got to wonder about who possibly can. Now, it does appear possible that Apple and the whole App Store has cracked it. Perhaps there is now a way of charging for content, but the thing I want to leave you with the thought of is the major issue actually is one for our friends at Westminster, both Upper House and Lower House, which is if we don't have a way to bring the copyright regime up to date, then actually the whole debate about paywalls becomes completely moot if there isn't some way of enforcing copyright. That's it. Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Roger.